recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll call to order the Lowell City Council special meeting and later on work session for Tuesday, April 7th at 7:09. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Stratus,
Here.
Councilor Drott.
Here.
Okay, I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll say you all helped.
That was fast.
Okay. Anybody have any additions, changes they want to do to the agenda? Not
No,
hearing
sir.
any?
None.
Jerry, do you have anybody there that wants to make a public comment, or is that going to come in later?
No, we have nobody here.
Okay. That makes it
Ethan Hall
easy.
stayed home.
Council comments before we start? Okay. For my part, this is new, so we'll try to not step on each other or anything like that. And I'll call on people as it is, and we'll try to work this thing out as smoothly as possible. Okay. The first thing we have is no old business. On new business. Mr. Cobb, you want to lead us on that?
Yes, so Mayor and Council, this was an error on my part in numbering the resolutions. So at the last council meeting, we passed 2 resolutions for grants, and they were basically, that was the same resolution number that we'd already used. And so these 2 next resolutions that you have, it's the exact same resolution as last time. The only change is the numbers, and then a very small clause at the bottom that says, be it further resolved that this resolution replaces and supersedes the old resolution that we are trying to clean up. And so the first one that you have is for the Rolling Rock Park, and it is for the local government grant program. The second one that you have is with the Land and Water Conservation program. So the first is a state program and the second is federal.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Cobb? Not hearing any. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution 734 as presented.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion is second. We have any further discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor of a motion to approve resolution 734 as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any opposed. It carries 4-0. Okay, next we have is resolution 735. Mr. Cobb, the federal grant, do you have anything to add on that?
No, just that with as with the prior resolution, this replaces the old resolution number.
Are we hoping to get both of these, or either or?
We are, and it'd be nice to get both of them. The benefit to us is that one is federal and one is state. And so essentially what would happen is if the council would have a choice, if we got both of them, essentially you would not have to put in match unless you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, because that ends up being a few dollars. Okay, any other questions before we, any from anybody? Okay, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution 735 as presented.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to second. We have further discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor of resolution 735, a resolution to apply for Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for Rolling Rock Park improvements, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any opposed. Okay, hold on. Okay. Any other business anybody wants to bring up? Mayor comments is I'm glad everybody's still healthy and socially separated. So let's stay that way. Okay. No community comments because we don't have anybody. Anybody have anything before we adjourn? Not hearing anything. We're adjourned at 7:14. Okay. Next up is the work session. Call to order the work session at 7:14. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Counselor Harris,
Here.
Counselor Stratus,
Here.
Counselor Drott.
Here.
Okay, we have 5 items on our list here. The first one being the 2020 strategic plan. You want to go over that, Mr. Cobb?
Yes. So the first thing I want to mention is there was a suggestion, I believe, by the mayor at the last meeting to possibly look at this as a multi-year plan. And I thought about that quite a bit. At the end of the day, that's what I would suggest, just so not such that when you start to get out towards the last couple of years, you may not have as much on there today as you would next year, the year after. But I think at least for us, for those things that we're aware of, it allows us to at least keep them front of mind and plan towards them. Otherwise, they may be forgotten. So I don't think, we try to be as comprehensive as we can be, but I think as we all know, we have a pretty good idea of what will probably happen the next couple of years. Year 4 and 5 is a little more difficult. The other thing, and I want to get your feedback on this, but like when you looked at the work plans and you had all the different years, there are some of these initiatives, actions that we do every year. And so my thought process was, let's say there's a bullet point on there for 2020. Next year, assuming it's been done, we can check that off. And so it will show people that it has been completed. And so it's something that folks could actually track from year to year.
My only input on that is these are calendar years where our budget's fiscal years. So it's calendar year, which lines up with your evaluation. But some of these things, you're going to be putting in this year's part of the upcoming budget and the part of the following budget. So it makes it a little bit different that way.
And I think the reason why is because most people, because we've done the last couple strategic plans on a calendar year as well. And the reason we did that was because we figured most people think in terms of a calendar year and not a fiscal year. And so at the end of the year, when we get to the January, we can give folks an update on the prior year. That's also how your council terms are structured as well.
No, it was fine. I just commenting. Okay.
So if you'd like, we can go through each one of these. If you have any questions or if you saw something that you think should be prioritized differently, let me know.
Yeah.
I did organize them around these goals. Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit different. And so if you want, we can just start with that first goal and then move forward through there.
Okay. I tell you what, we're on organizational excellence. I think everybody should be there. And what I want to do to make it easier, I don't want to read every one of these, but just kind of, I'll go through and say letter A and give you time to look and think about it, and then B, and we'll just go through like that. And that way, make our life easier and everything like that, if that sounds okay.
Yeah.
Okay, on the enhanced communications public outreach for residents, business, organization, work plan, A. B. C. D. E. I had a question on that. Is your virtual public workshop going to be something like this, where you'll sit there and people will log in and you'll just be talking with them, or?
Oh, I think the intention for that was to have at least the code grant, the grant that we have to update our land development code
Uh-huh.
requires what they are calling a virtual public workshop. And essentially, it's a web page on the city's site with the information on the code program and offering people several weeks to submit comments.
Okay.
And so the idea was to have some way of getting, doing some outreach at least once a year with the community. So it could be something like that, where we have a specific topic that we're trying to get feedback on, or it could be a council meeting. You may have council meetings to where you let people join electronically and provide, public comment in a council meeting. That was something that we tried to get up and running for tonight. And that's why there was that last minute switch, because we had some challenges with that. But I think that's something that you might want to consider. You don't have to necessarily do it for every council meeting, but you may want to have some sort of a town hall type outreach meeting once a year and just offer it online as well.
Okay. That sounds good. Any other questions? If not, F. G. Okay, we're on to number 2, improve the human resource capacity of the city. Got A. B. C. D.
So I'm assuming we do that like once every 5 years, Jared? Is that what I'm seeing there with the one dot in there?
So we haven't done it in the past. A good practice would be once every 5 years.
So those
That's
numbers you
another.
So those numbers you pulled up recently when we were looking at the issue with you, those were just numbers you pulled up for that special event so that we had that, or okay.
Yeah, we haven't done that in the past, but it's frankly a good practice. And if we're lucky, there may be another community like Coburg that would join with us to do it, because it's cheaper if you can partner. And I know last time they did one, they were trying to get other municipalities to join.
Doesn't League of Oregon Cities usually provide something along this line, or is that not specific enough, or am I confused?
No, they provide some, but it's a matter of taking the data that, it's a matter of getting the data for several municipalities that are comparable to Lowell. And it's not just the salaries, it's also the benefits. So it's looking at looking at retirement, health insurance, because it's really the full package. Some cities don't pay 100% of health insurance, and that's, makes a big difference in the overall compensation.
Okay. Good to know. Any other questions on that packet? Okay, 3, support of professional development. Got A. B. C. Number 4 is adopt policy for, go ahead.
I'll just make one comment on that B and C from the prior one. The reason why I suggested putting those in at the beginning of 2021 was because that will be after the election. And so having an orientation handbook is important if you have new counselors in particular. But then again, doing that governance handbook, it wouldn't make any sense, I don't think, to do it this year when there's going to be at least one new person.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Okay, we'll move on to number 4, adopt policies that support the goals. We have A. A is a big one. B.
Oh, B, we actually at the last meeting had talked about taking this out. However, one thing that came up that I thought about was our former attorney, Milo Meacham, said the next time that you go out to review and amend your charter, you need to look at how we handled the filling of vacancies. Because he said there's still, that needs to be cleaned up just a little bit so it's clear. I know what it means, our attorney knows what it means, but he said that we may want to look at that just to clarify. Because originally the intention of the council was to have an election at the next regularly scheduled election. But the understanding at that time by the council and by staff was that that meant that if you had somebody say today that resigned, then you would not have a vacancy for more than 6 months because there would be the next election. You would go ahead and file. However, the council did not think that that would cost any money. And the county came back and said, no, even if you want to be on a ballot that we're already sending out, that's going to be considered a special election and the city's going to have to pay for it.
Okay.
And so when not to confuse everyone, but when we first had the discussion, it was, like I said, basically the next election, but the council at that time thought there wouldn't be an expense to it. And so we just need to look at that and clean it up.
Okay.
And decide if that needs to go back out to the voters.
That's the plan. Whenever we make, when we try to make, or when we make a change to the charter, that has to go to the voters to ratify, either support it or not. So that council works on it. We put it all together. Next election comes up, we put it to the voters. Do you agree with this? Disagree? Whatever, and then they ratify whatever we tried to do. Okay. Next one up is community development. Okay. Have A, B, is that putting parks and recreation in, say, the new subdivisions? So they'll have they'll put it aside for a park, or is that what the idea, or just to support the parks we already have?
So that is such that whenever you have a new subdivision, in our
Uh-huh.
Parks and Rec master plan, we basically, I think the level of service was a half a mile, so that every park was within a half a mile of where someone lives. And so the idea is if you have somebody that's going a subdivision on the fringe, that you're planning for parks in that area.
Okay, all right. Further questions, anybody? Okay, C. D. What's LMI?
Low to moderate income requirements.
Okay.
So basically what we have in place for, is that we're built on Wetlow.
Uh-huh. Okay. E. F. G. Okay, next one up is create a welcoming business environment. Okay. A. B. C. D. E. F. Financial sustainability. A. B. C. D. E. Okay, development balanced and sustainability revenues. A. B. C. D. E. F.
What is the GFOA, Jared?
That is the Government Finance Officers Association.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, it's kind of just like the gold standard for budgets.
We saw that when the CPAs came in, and just that was one of the ones
Yeah.
they were discussing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Whenever you're doing everything right, that's when you submit and say, I want to be recognized for doing everything right. So we should be getting pretty close to that. Okay, dependable infrastructure. Meet and exceed federal, state, water, sewer. Okay, A. B. C. D. E. F. G.
So a few things on this.
Okay.
One thing that I'm surprised Max didn't mention, but we need to add one for our TMDL plan, which deals with stormwater.
Okay.
And Max, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, good. You didn't run to the kitchen. The TMDL is updated every year, or is it every 2 years?
So the report is generated and revised every 5 years, and we submit an annual report of objectives and our goals. And so, yeah, annual submittal, and then update and reviewed every 5 years.
So the plan is revised every 5 years, and then we submit a report every year.
Yeah.
So if it's
we-
okay with council, I'll go ahead and put some language together, basically just like water and sewer, so that we keep track of that as well.
Good. Next up is plan and develop new facilities infrastructure.
Sorry, one more thing real quick, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
let's go back.
The stormwater, the reason why we are proposing that for this year or early next is because as we've worked with these last two developers on subdivisions, we found a number of things that need to be addressed sooner rather than later. There was not, typically when you have a master plan, it will identify certain policies for the city, and it did not do a great job at that. And so we literally had to go through the plan, do a number of site visits to try to determine what would be the best way for handling stormwater. And so the long and the short of it is we want to be able to have, when somebody comes forward with a development, we want to be able to tell them, okay, you have to build a stormwater detention for a 5-year storm, or you don't have to build one at all because the city charges SDCs to be able to ensure that we have capacity. But as of right now, we don't have a policy. All our code says is you have to do a stormwater study, and then we'll take it from there and decide how to deal with it. And so it creates, I think, a lot of unnecessary risk not having a policy in place. It certainly created some headaches with one of the developments for sure.
I see in Springfield, they're putting those stormwater basins in every development. So, it's to ease the runoff.
Right, and we have one We have one right now that will have to put in a detention pond because they can't connect to the city's system. The only system they could connect to is the county, and the county says no. So they have to put one in, but for those developments that would connect to a city system, it's pretty important, I think, that we have a policy in place.
I have questions about that, but I'll ask later.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the stormwater, wastewater, sewer plan? Doing good work on that, Max. Okay, next up is new facilities. We have A, B, C. No line between C and D.
Yeah, they're actually there. It's something weird with when I
Okay.
convert them to PDF,
Okay.
so we'll get that straightened out.
Okay. D. E. F. G. H. Is Canon spelled right? Is it one N or two N's?
I
Two
think-
ends.
I think it's
Okay.
one name, so it's two.
Okay.
It's two ends.
I think I've seen it with one N, so I don't know if it was my misspelling or only Canons ever knew had two N's, but I think I've seen it with one.
Yeah,
Okay.
canon with one end would be like canon law or something within the Bible or something canon,
Okay.
so something that's established.
Okay. Yeah. I was at Cannon Air Force Base, so that I
Yeah.
understand that. Okay, through with H. How about I? J. K.
Yeah, D Street's not on there.
We just took the projects from the stormwater master plan. I don't know what to tell you. It wasn't on there.
So it'll go back in?
No, Jared's pulling my leg.
Oh,
That is well, that actually is a project that we have to work on. We've actually already had the engineer out there to look at the ditch.
I think that's the big thing to deal with first.
Yeah.
You
It's mainly-
can't.
Yeah, a lot of it's cleanup and making sure that the ditch is in place all the way along that right of way.
Yeah.
okay. Finish up with K. On to L. Okay, next, reduce life cycle cost of equipment. We have A, B, C, D. Okay, exceptional quality of life. Next one up. This one was interesting. I enjoyed going through this one. Okay, develop and maintain parks. We have A. Then we have B.
Let's see how
We
you
have-
are. How good you are at your alphabet now.
Then we did A again.
I've already fixed that. You're
Yeah.
just not seeing
Just
it.
wanted to
it-
see if we were awake.
It gets
Right.
better. It gets better. We have another B. I like the turf management. That's a good idea. C. D. E.
So going back to D for a second, we've got
Yeah.
complete design, construction, and renovation in the Maggie Osgood Library. Do we really see that happening without that creeping into 21 at the very least?
It probably will. It'll creep into 2021.
Yeah,
That's my guess.
yeah.
especially now, it's going to depend really how quickly I think the economy comes back.
Yeah.
For foundation funding, at least, I think.
Because a lot of jobs are sitting pretty dormant, so when it comes back, they're going to be getting priority. So we may well get pushed. So
And I think E may be a duplicate.
okay.
So I think, Gail might be, I don't know, I might be speaking out of turn. I think there might be an opportunity. I think in the federal level, we're looking at a possible, resources coming in for us to do infrastructure development. I wonder if that opportunity will be extended to, communities on our level.
Well, I know there's been discussion about it. I think the best thing that we can possibly do is have the drawings prepared.
Absolutely.
For whatever project we want to get done, because we would typically, you'll be first in line if you're prepared. Double ready is to call it.
Well,
I-
not only
that's what
that, but that often when that kind of money comes in, there's deadlines and so forth. And if we're not ready to, to jump, we could miss the opportunity too. So.
And I think all the hard work you guys have done is gonna behoove us if that opportunity does come up.
Yeah, it will. I mean, that's one of the things we're looking at federally is, we got to have our ideas and our things in line in case.
And I think that the few that come to mind, obviously the street projects, we're already planning on moving forward with those. But the park, we have construction plans being put together for that. And I think probably at our next work session, it would be good to have a discussion about even the library, about at least moving forward on the drawings for the library. Because I think it's, you may, if you don't get funding from a foundation, you may end up doing it in 2 phases, but at least you've got the drawings and specs done.
Yeah. I think we're starting to be in a good position if money comes loose. So, and we can all say we voted for DeFazio and see if he'll send some our way whenever it gets released.
We like whoever is in office. Let's just put
You
it that way.
Yeah,
That's right.
whoever's writing, I enjoy whoever's writing my check.
Well, and the other thing is not only.
Honestly.
I don't know. I'm losing my.
Don, you're retired. All of us that are still
Prioritize.
working are writing your check.
Prioritize.
It's
to
good being
have our
retired.
ideas, but we might want to prioritize.
I think Jared, I think even a little more advancement on the city hall development might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
If we could invest
They're printing money as
$1,000,
fast as they can right now. So
if
who
we
knows?
could invest $1,000 into some drawings for the city hall or $5,000, it might be money well spent. I don't know. It's it's conjecture at this point, but
Well,
further we are-
even having what we have now we're still in a pretty good position even for the library. I mean, having the conceptual plan done with the floor plans and some rough elevations, so that's even a pretty good step. That's a lot further than a lot of communities would go.
Yeah.
Good for us. Okay, we were finishing up E, F. Now we get wild and crazy. M. N. On to the next page. O.
do we
Pete?
see the irrigation happening considering the shortcomings we found when they tried to light it up and found a lot of failures? Do we see that happening in 2020?
So the idea was the resolutions that we discussed earlier, we get both of those grants, then I think that the city council can say, okay, we had planned to spend 200,000 on parks. Do we want to put that towards Paul Fisher Park? Not necessarily all of it, but at least part of it. So that's one option. The way that it was, at least the rough budget and those projects were put together, was to try to get basically phase one done at both. But a lot of that, like I said, will depend on how those grants fall.
Okay.
Okay. I believe we're on P, path to Dexter Lake. Q.
Don, on this point here, I know that you were interested in, maybe spearheading some of this. I had a discussion with Brad Asher the other day, and he said he'd be willing to help out with this particular project. He's got a special interest in it.
Yeah.
So if you end up having some work you need done or something, he might be a good resource to help you out.
Okay. You can pass, Jared has that also, so we can,
For a P?
Yeah, the dock.
Uh,
No, the Q.
Oh, the dock. Oh, the
Yeah.
dock. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, that's still gonna be a challenge. Okay. How about R? S? T? Then you have a slide in there for activity, at the park, which is nice.
On S, I don't see underground electric, Jared.
How could you leave that out?
Inclusive of all of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You got a Merry Christmas.
Especially once we get
Recreation and library programming. How about A?
So this may be a dumb point, but I would assume folks would understand that we may not hit 6 this year.
Yeah.
I've been wondering about that one.
Yeah.
How about B? Yeah. Do you have more to say?
We've talked with the folks at Oregon Paddle Sports because we did have 2 events planned with them. And the first event we've already canceled. They were holding out hope for the second one, but I don't think there's any chance that we end up having that either. I think that was in the end of April or May, and I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. Yeah, next year we can build. We can keep them on the calendar for next year. Okay, I believe we're on B. That was paddle sports, I think.
Mm-hmm.
C. D. E. F. Improve public safety. First was speeding. A. B. C. D. E.
So E, I don't know if I mentioned that to the council, but I had discussed with one of the officers at Oak Ridge who lives here in Lowell. And so the conversation with him was to be able to have it set up so that if he had a need to check those cameras for something that he could, and the same thing with staff. Because right now we actually have to go there, plug our computers in and download it off of this. And they do have a service where you can access the recording from a computer or a mobile device.
Oh.
So we're trying to kind of push more tools towards Oak Ridge so that they can assist with some of this work.
Okay. Further
And not only
questions?
would- not only would you have access to recordings, you would have access to real time, is my understanding. with
Correct.
those Programs.
And if we wanted to do that, we probably should revise that policy. We put a policy in place when we bought the first cameras probably 4 years ago. And the idea was that if we did have any activity that we could check the cameras, but we weren't going to be monitoring them on a regular, like daily basis, watching folks. We didn't want to give that impression.
Yeah. But if somebody called and said, hey, I think there's something going on in the park, somebody caught the garbage can in the gazebo on fire, you guys could look and check that.
Absolutely.
Okay. We're finished with that section. Next, encourage community beautification. A. B. C. Okay, that's the end of the that section. Hold on. Go back to the agenda. Let's see. We finished that. Supplemental budget. I don't believe I got anything on that. Was anything published?
No, you didn't. So I'm in timeout for this one. I'm in trouble. So a few of the things, I think I can explain it pretty well, and
Okay.
I'll send something to you all in the next day or two. We've been working on the budget for next year already in earnest. And one of the things that we do is we try to estimate all of our expenses through the end of the year, through the end of the current fiscal year as well, because that obviously sets up the next year. And so there are a few things that through talking with Laylee, she would like us to clean up. One is that when we bought this facility for the library and we took out the loan, at that time, we went ahead and set it up such that the library, water admin, sewer, streets, all of those funds were paying a portion of that debt in accordance with basically their use of the facility. So the water portion was fairly small, the sewer portion was fairly small, streets was extremely small. We had a pretty long discussion with the auditor, and his preference and Laylee was for because this will eventually be a permanent city hall or permanent library, was that basically the library owns this facility. And so the general fund should make those debt payments. And essentially, when Joyce and I are in here working on City Hall general admin work, that those other funds should basically just be paying rent, in a sense. And so instead of paying the debt directly, they would be paying that same amount in a transfer. And so to be able to do that, you do need a supplemental budget to show that change. And so that was the biggest change. And that's, like I said, that's mainly an accounting recommendation from our auditor. And
Is that something to be done this year, or is that you're going to make, okay, before the end of this year?
We need to do it this year. And it was without getting too far in the weeds, there were a lot of factors that we took into account when we structured this in the budget last year. Some of the foundations, if you recall, they had concerns over how the facility was being used and what they would and would not support. So there was a lot that went into it. And at the end of the day, after spending way too much time with Bill and Laylee, they recommended that we structure it, like I said, almost like rent. And so my recommendation is I will put that in the supplemental budget. The other two things that I am looking at, and frankly, one of these days, I'm just going to wise up and just put $1 million in the budget for building inspection services, because it seems like we always come back to that. We may go a couple thousand over. The biggest wild card in this has always been the school and their projects. Because what happens if they stay on schedule and they got everything done in a certain year, we could budget a large number for that. But then if it gets extended out into the next fiscal year and we don't have that other $10,000, then we get dinged for it. And so that has been particularly hard to manage. So we still have money coming in. It's just, that's not the issue. It's when the money goes out. And so we're looking at that as well. So that's the second item. The third item is, again, another accounting practice. And we've already discussed this one, but essentially not using the equipment reserve fund to directly purchase things. So one of the issues with that is that whichever fund is using that resource should be the one that pays for it. And so by using a reserve fund, it kind of muddles things a little bit. And so the auditor would like us to pay for those directly out of our funds. So
Okay.
when we buy just for simplicity, we go and we buy a tractor that we know is only going to be used for water and sewer. Water and sewer need to be paying for that 50-50 between the two funds, and it needs to come out of water fund and sewer fund. There's nothing wrong with each of those funds putting money aside every year into a reserve in that fund and showing it. We can certainly do that. But
So
did not like
Jared,
that.
so
Yes.
so if you did need to get money from the reserve, the equipment reserve fund, you would take it and move it to the fund that it was actually being drawn on to purchase the equipment. Is
So
that
that's
what you're
one
saying?
way of, that's one way of doing it. So the two options that we looked at was, yeah, you can keep putting money into that reserve fund, but then you still need to show a transfer going back the other direction. And I think it was, I don't remember if we discussed it at the last work session or if it was the one before, but the idea was our recommendation was that essentially each one of those funds reserve money every year for equipment. And that we plan, I mean, we know we have a pretty good idea for what we'd like to purchase over the next few years. And so doing a good job at anticipating those expenses and those large capital expenses being in that capital improvement plan, we should be able to buy all the equipment out of those funds without any issue. It's just something that you've got to, you should plan and manage. As far as showing it, like I said, we can certainly show those reserve accounts in the budget as well. So it's not a matter of, I don't want to give the wrong impression, it's not a matter of not planning and setting funds aside. It's really how you show it,
Right.
budget and on the accounting.
Okay. That's,
Hopefully that's clear as mud.
it sounds like more work on your part than ours, so we'll let you do it. Okay, next up, any more on supplemental budget? Are you gonna bring that back
Nope.
to us in the regular session then to act
So
on?
that'll go back to your next city council meeting, and we'll try to get that one out earlier so that you've
Okay.
got time to look at it.
Okay. Next up is pay scale. Mr. Cobb, when you're ready.
Yeah, so every year we adopt a new pay scale for the city. If employees receive a positive evaluation, they essentially get a 5% increase. So they move on to the next step because each step is 5%. We don't have we don't adjust this for cost of living. So that is in that 5%. Over the past 4.5 years since I've been here, I think we've done a pretty good job at getting most of our positions up a competitive wage. The position that Max and I, though, have talked about a lot are the utility operators. Historically, we've been way behind, and if Max is still here, and again, not in the kitchen, as I say that, there goes Don. But I think when I started here, our utility operators started around $12 or $13 an hour, which was pretty difficult to hire someone that has the aptitude to be successful in that position, because this is not just a laborer position. There's a lot of studying and there are certifications that these folks have to get. And so, long story short, we've looked at some other communities of our size, and even with this proposal, we're not, for someone that's certified, we're not quite where we probably should be. But I think until we're able to get a salary survey done, I think this at least takes us in the right direction. So right now, our minimum is $15 an hour for the utility operator positions. And this would increase that to 18. One of our closest, I don't want to say competitors, but would be, I think, Monroe, and I believe they start at $20 an hour. And I don't even know that their plan is as complex as ours. And so we're just trying to move in that direction. I wanted to present this to you so you've got it. You've got time to think about it. And then at the council meeting, I don't know that it will be, trying to think, it will be good to handle at the next council meeting. It doesn't have to be, but it would be good to tackle this at the next council meeting. And we can provide you with some other comparables as well at that meeting.
Well, everybody's already received their pay increase for this year already, right?
So yes, so this would
be for next year.
July 1.
Okay, so this would be for next year. Okay, or for
Right.
setting up budget for next year. Okay, and I think Monroe has a few high-end farms and stuff that probably help them pay for things too. So but
you got to live in Monroe.
Yeah.
Monroe's a small community too. They're actually, population-wise, they're quite a bit smaller than we are. They're about 650 to 700.
Yeah.
But I tell you, the other thing that's I think important too is even the city of Cresswell, their wastewater treatment plant is much less complex. Ours is, they use a I believe like a lagoon system, don't they, Max?
Yeah, a lagoon, just a giant pond.
Right. Whereas, I mean, if you've been down to our plant, it's a lot more sophisticated and complex, and because of that, the certification requirements are much higher to operate it.
Okay.
But we're just very, and I can say this because we're pretty much worked through our reviews already, but we're just very happy with the progress from our two new operators, and want to certainly make sure that we're able to keep a competitive wage for them to keep them on.
We need to stay as competitive as we can. So.
Yeah, we don't want to see repetitive turnover in those positions.
No, and they seem to be good guys. So.
You lose all your savings if you want to pay the $15 an hour. You lose all your savings and the turnover of rehires and training.
Yeah. Okay.
Overtime.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when we look at our budget too, honestly, it's not a huge impact to the budget. Our biggest impact has just been the increase in healthcare and retirement. It has not been salaries. So this is certainly something that's doable.
Anything more on pay scale?
No, sir.
Okay, next up is open vacancy for council position.
So mayor and council, I don't think, excuse me, I don't think we really discussed this a whole lot. Just wanted to get some feedback for where the council's at. If you wanted to consider taking applications for the vacancy or not. There are obviously pros and cons to each, but I think we at least need to make a decision on that. And so you're obviously not making it tonight, but I just want to make sure that that doesn't get forgotten. And if you all do have kind of an idea for where you stand personally, please let me know so we can at least start planning towards putting together. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Go over again, Jared, so we've got elections coming up we'll be on the November ballot, right?
Correct.
So if we don't appoint somebody between now and then, how many months are we talking about?
7, 6,
Basically 6 months.
6, 7 months.
Yeah.
Because if we did it in May, it would be a special election and we'd have to pay for it. Is that correct? Is that?
Right. So the way that our charter is currently structured is that these positions, so the terms of, and I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head which position it was, but the position, it was either Councilor Drott or Stratus that has a term that would be expiring at the end of this year, but one of them actually has 2 years left, I believe.
Mine is expiring this year.
Okay, and so then it's Councilor Stratus that you would actually be running just to fulfill the final 2 years of the term. And Councilor Drott, if you run, you would be running for a new term. And so the other position for former Councilor Angelini, Don, do you know, did she run at the same time you did, or was that?
Well, that was Maggie at the time, and I don't know. I don't remember who filled Maggie's.
I was thinking she and I were talking about the fact that we both had to run this year.
I thought everybody.
All the
I thought
ladies
everybody
had to
had
run
run.
this year.
I was thinking everybody had to run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except
Okay. So then that would be for a new, for a complete term as well. I guess the question is whether or not, whether you would want to appoint someone so that they have time to kind of get some experience and understand the position. Oftentimes, I know it can be a challenge to find folks to even run in a small town. I don't know where we're at there. But that is just really, that's really a council decision as to whether or not you would want to appoint someone now.
It just seems like that we're set up that basically when there's an opening that in every other committees and things like that, that we accept applications, whether or not we vote to take somebody onto the council or not, that decision can be made then. But I think that we should go ahead and open it up to have for applications.
So Don, you're saying that would give us an opportunity to evaluate who applied and then make a choice on whether we wanted to, how are we going to go with those applications? Like literally we could say, none of these are people we find appropriate.
Well, on those, what it generally happens is the council gets all the applications, and it's just like what we did on the resolutions tonight. Someone will say, I make a motion that we appoint so-and-so to a council position, whatever, and then you wait for a second. If you don't get a second, then that one dies. And, if you have somebody else, then you say, I've moved that to get a second, then you vote on it. And, if they don't pass, then they don't pass. And
Okay.
then, so then we'll leave it open. But I think for the people that may have there's like you say, there's not a large pool of people that we'll be drawing from, but it's going to probably to be some degree the same ones that would sign up for an election in November. So, we can hope to get the best of the best and, work for that way. If nothing else, we can get, like I say, we can leave the position all the way open to November. We don't have to, once we get the application, we would not have to say, we reject you, we keep you. We just don't make a motion to accept it.
I see.
Does that sound pretty close, Jared?
Yeah, I get it. I see.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor, that's accurate. And just, I mean, obviously, you folks know historically, we, at least in the last 5 years, we have appointed folks. We haven't left them vacant. So that's been kind of our common practice.
Well,
But
here's
you do have an option, and just wanted you to be aware of that.
here's a question for you, Jared and Dawn and Gail that have been on here longer. So what happens if, let's say, we don't appoint anybody and nobody wants to run in November?
It stays
That's a
open.
great question. I believe it would just stay open, and then you would have the opportunity to appoint someone. But
Okay.
we'd have to look at the charter for that to be sure.
Okay.
And then it falls back, then it would fall back on the charter where we could appoint someone, but then they've got to run in the next election coming up. So if the idea that they say, well, I don't want to run for election, I want to, see if the one stays open and vacant, and then I'll just, have my friends vote me in. Well, that would work for a year or so, and then they would have to eventually run for election.
Okay. Okay. So
It
to get some clarification, were you guys, Samantha, were you saying that I have to, or Jared, I'm not sure you said it, do I have to run for election in November too?
Yes. Yeah, to
So-
serve the remainder 2 years of the term.
Okay, so you guys will fill us in on the details on how to complete this stuff for that? Okay.
So
That's somewhat-
typically the county clerk's office will send out materials typically about the first week of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we get that out, and then we will,
They send it to you.
they'll send it to me, and then I'll pass on the applications.
Okay.
It comes out quite early, June, July, but it's actually almost like Labor Day before it's all finalized, and he sends the paperwork to the county.
Well, I
whoever.
forget when it closes. You
Register.
have there's so much time to apply. It's,
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we have an election in May, we've probably already passed the deadline for getting onto a ballot. I suspect.
We did.
don't-
We did. Yeah, it was in March. That was in March.
So, but anyway, I would, if everybody, if there's a consensus, I'd say that we go ahead and open it up for applications. I don't know, do we need a formal vote in a regular session or?
Yes, so what I will do is I will bring that back to the next
Okay.
regular meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
How do you guys have a standard period of time you usually leave these open, or is that kind of open to our interpretation about how long we would leave the application process open to gather the most qualified applicants and get the word out, et cetera?
So typically we try to put these, whether it's a committee or even city council, we put them out for a month. Enough
Okay.
time to put it in the bridge. And so, yeah, it would be actually a little over a month probably, unless you decided that you wanted to have a special meeting at your work session.
Well, and the times being what they are, is the application available online? Or do they have to come to the office to get it?
So they can download it online. However, it does require a signature, so we would take it.
isn't it the same application as we use for the committees?
Yes.
Isn't the council, city council, so it's just that form.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I filled it out, but I picked it up at the office, so I was just making
Yeah.
sure that it was
Well, you could
available.
literally download it, sign it at home, and snail mail it in if you wanted.
Or else just slip it in to slot it at City Hall.
Yeah.
Stick it in, we'll put it through there. But
Right.
we can act on it into this month and give us a month for the next regular session before we have to do anything after that. The good thing is there's 4 of us and we seem all healthy and stable. So.
You weren't
Yeah,
gonna
you shouldn't
get to
you
do it
shouldn't
again.
have said that,
Maybe
Mayor.
all
Come on.
okay. Anyway, so we can go forward on that. Any more questions on that one? Okay, update on their COVID-19 state of local emergency. We're going to have to act again on the 22nd for the rest of the month or sometime after that, I see.
So I think so it runs out on the 22nd. And so
Uh-huh.
we can discuss that at our next regular meeting.
Yeah.
The few updates I wanted to give you just that you're aware. We
What?
did I
Looking
did I
away.
miss something?
Yes, you
cat
did, but
It's going
That's all
crazy,
right.
stacking the dog
Catherine.
food bag.
Tim was throwing in
Oh.
the towel. Tim was throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
I've been waiting
So-
for my cat show.
To give you kind of an update on a few things that we've done internally. So staff, everyone basically has their own space. And so I am basically working from my house. Max has my old office. He's getting way too comfortable in it. Joyce has her space. They each, of course, have their own restroom. And then we have one operator at the water plant, one at the sewer plant. They all have their own vehicle to drive, and so and that's probably the hardest one to enforce with some people. So if you see two of them in a vehicle, please let me know. We're
Stitches
doing
get
our best to
stitches,
keep.
man.
That's okay.
Do we
I'm all
have,
right
we
with
have, does the city have masks or access to them
We do.
for the guys? I tell you what I only asked that because I was in town today and I would say at least 90% of the people had masks on, and I realize we're not in town and stuff like that, but they're socially distancing and everything like that. But hopefully this will resolve itself. But I don't know if there's a need or desire to go that direction.
So, so to that point, and since Counselor Stratus is wearing one, Max has one as well. So I have a good friend that actually works on a military base, and I hate to say this, but for their essential employees that are showing up to work, that are required to show up to work, they have told them that if they are working in close contact with others, that they sent home instructions for how to make a mask, and they are
Yeah.
supposed to make it on their own
Yeah.
and bring it to work. And so we are in a huge shortage. The idea for having them separate was that you wouldn't have that kind of contact.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Good.
if there's an emergency line break, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So, there's that chance where, they have to work in close quarters. But what we were, oh gosh, we're getting better.
I like that one better. I do.
As long as you don't mind when it gets posted on the web, that's okay. We're just fine.
He's in the pink.
I'm setting a good example.
I know.
So
People
nobody.
may start watching these meetings, just
Have
to see
you,
what Tim wears.
Do we have any? We don't have anybody infected in Lowell City or that you're aware of this neighborhood at all, right? Good.
So the way that the data is disseminated is such that we get a report on folks that are in the Eugene Springfield Metro,
Yeah.
and then there's a report for everyone outside of that.
Okay.
And so as of, let's see what day, today's Tuesday. As of yesterday, I believe the number was 27 in Eugene and Springfield that were confirmed, and 1 in the rural area of Wayne County.
Good.
Now, they of course put in the caveat that if you're in Eugene and Springfield, you have better access to getting tested. And so we do know that there are a lot of people that probably have had it and don't even realize it. Other folks that have frankly just taken the advice, stayed home, and are not getting tested.
Yeah.
So it does not mean that there are only 29 people in the county that have contracted it. So just putting that out there because we want to make sure that people still they don't want you to use social distance now. I think it's physically distance themselves from other people.
Okay.
But so we're trying to do our part on that end. As far as challenges that we've seen, we have had a few incidents with law enforcement. We had the Portland manufacturing was, my understanding was they were broken into and had some things stolen. Yesterday, we had some folks that I think their vehicle broke down on First Street and they started going through people's yards and such. And so Lane County was called out on them. We've asked, if you recall, Oak Ridge did not put in the hours, did not put in their 40 hours last month. And so we did ask them to basically put as many of those hours in this month that they could. I've also been communicating again with I don't want to call him a resident officer, but they're with Neil, Officer Neil Ritz, because he does live in town. And so he's been assigned as a contact to me in case we have anything that comes up in town. And so we've sent him a number of requests over the last couple weeks.
Good.
So it's been good to have that relationship. Beyond that, I haven't heard any complaints as far as not having access to City Hall. I think most folks have just put their payments in the Dropbox or paid online or over the phone. So it's good that we did that a few years ago, because that's really coming in handy now. If we hadn't done that, this would be pretty difficult to do, to close City Hall. Max, anything that you want to add?
No, not anything you haven't already went over.
Okay. The other thing that we've done, this should have been Max's area, but we have somebody that operates as another acronym, DRC. Max, what is that again?
Direct responsible in charge.
That is for wastewater or wastewater and water?
For collections only, wastewater collections.
So just for wastewater collections. He has certifications though in the other areas of wastewater and water. And so we did get him to sign a contract to be on call in case, Max got sick. And, we had a couple guys out and needed assistance. So we do have one person on backup in case that happened. That was, frankly, from the city standpoint, an operational standpoint, that has been, I guess, my biggest concern, especially knowing that we have a staff that works pretty closely together and likes each other for the most part. And so the way that the health department explained it to us was that if the guys were working within 6 feet of each other for more than an hour a day, if one person became ill, then there was a chance that the health department might quarantine the rest of them. Now, when push came to shove, I don't know what that would look like, because somebody has to operate the water and sewer plant. But that was again why we put in those distancing measures for all of them, but also wanted to have a backup just in case we needed somebody to do the basic test every day.
Okay.
And so that's all I've got on that. I have checked with the food bank as well. They've changed their operations such that I believe they just have folks driving up and they're giving them boxes as opposed to having them come through the facility. Also checked in with Pastor Dave Corwin and just told him that if he hears of any issues, of folks who are having some challenges, to let us know, because if we don't hear from folks, it's hard for us to address. We're not going to be able to address any of those issues. But we've got contacts to deal with some of these challenges, and we just need to know about them.
Okay.
So that goes to the council as well. If you know of some folks that need some assistance, please let us know so that we can get them in touch with the right people.
Okay. Sounds good.
I believe Councilor Harris needs technical support with her laptop, with her tablet.
Why?
Just
Well,
saying.
I've done well tonight.
You've done great.
Yes,
given
I
you a
always do, Tim. You know that.
We had a fun afternoon trying to get this stuff set up, because we've done a number of conference calls using this service, but trying to introduce the element of the public and giving them an opportunity to somehow engage was quite the challenge. So that's how we ended up back to this, but we're still going to work on that moving
Okay.
I think
forward.
you've done pretty well, actually. I think it seems like a very functional program.
I was gonna say, it seems like it's worked well.
It's been a good night. Okay.
Very
Anything else by anybody? Okay. We're adjourned at 8:24. You can turn
Wow.
off recording.
That's a record lately.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.